Hi everyone. We had difficulty with a new technology, and unfortunately, this is a new reality that we all have to adapt during this pandemic remote learning. I'm recording this presentation and I hope you'll find it more enjoyable. Please feel free to send me your question that you might have with the email I provide here on this page and at the end of this presentation. It is such an honor to have my exhibit at the National Museum of Wildlife Art in Jackson, Wyoming. Over the years, I have visited Jackson many times and visited the museum, and I admired the exhibit there. So to have the exhibit there is such a great honor to me. The museum is a world class, and the staff has worked very hard to make exhibit. Besides, Jackson is one of my favorite towns. It is beautiful and surrounded by a mountain range, and I'm excited to see this exhibit myself. I have been photographing North American grouse now for close to 20 years, so the image in this exhibit have taken many years and effort to make. I hope many of you can visit the museum and see them in person. Today, I hope to share a little bit about me and how I started photographing grouse almost 20 years ago. But most importantly, I hope to introduce you to this amazing and extraordinary species, the greater sage-grouse, and hopefully you can get a glimpse of why I am in love with this species and why I believe it is important to protect this species in the West, one of the last remaining wilderness in North America. So let's get started. But before that, I'm going to turn my video off and I'll come back at the end. Well, I hope that make your heart rate go up a little bit before this presentation. Again, my name is Noppadol Paothong, and I am a host of this program today. I am a wildlife conservationist. I am also a staff photographer with the Missouri Department of Conservation Publications, and I have been with the agency now for the past 15 years, and I have over 160 cover photos in the magazine. The publication is one of the largest conservation magazines in the country with a circulation of 500,000 every month. I love taking photos, especially rare and endangered species. I believe photography is the most powerful tool to raise awareness and move people emotionally. I want my images to tell the story and be a voice for this voiceless animal. I'm also an associate fellow with the International League of Conservation Photographer, or ILCP. The ILCP is an elite group of world's top wildlife, nature, and culture photographers with 118 members based in 26 countries, working in over 90 countries. Our mission is more than simply taking pretty photos, but to use our images as a visual narratives that give a compelling evidence of the need to protect these special places. Why grouse? This is the most common question people ask me when I told them what I do. And my answer to them is, Someone has to do it. Someone has to tell the story of these extraordinary birds that live here in North America. In fact, we know more about exotic wildlife than we do with the many wildlife in our own backyard. Well, this was a much younger me 26 years ago, believe it or not. And I believe I still have the little red flannel shirt somewhere. And if you haven't noticed already, my name isn't a typical Missouri name. I was born in Thailand and I came to the United States in 1993 to study. I started to photograph wildlife in North America in 1994. And just like most photographers in their early career, I focus on big, majestic wildlife. And what do I mean by big, majestic wildlife? Well, something like elk, moose, wolf, bear, and eagle. Those are very important animals. But I later start to focus more on something small and something somewhat people kind of overlook and less significant, but they are as important, such as pollinators like bumblebee and butterflies. I have learned along the way that protecting habitat is the key for the survival of wildlife because habitat is everything. And sage-grouse especially heavily depend on sagebrush. Sagebrush is a key to their survival because they depend on these plants for everything. Without these plants, there is no sage-grouse. So let's talk about sage-grouse a little bit. How many of you today have heard of greater sage-grouse? If I can see a hand today, there won't be that many. And that is a problem because the conservation, the challenge of conservation plan to protect sage-grouse is that most people don't know what it is they are protecting and why we need to protect them, right? Sage-grouse can be very divisive issue. When you talk to people, they say, oh, sage-grouse this. But as a person who have been working with sage-grouse now for almost 20 years, I met many conservationists, ranchers, and biologists. I have seen what can be done when we all working together with the same goal. Throughout my career as wildlife conservationist, photographer, I have tried to emphasize that we are part of nature. We are just like any other species except our ability to alter the resources we depend on. And with that ability comes greater responsibility. My hope for this photo exhibit is to introduce people the beauty and spirit of sage-grouse and the land they depend on, and also to increase their awareness and have an honest conversation about conservation effort to protect them and their habitat. Some of you probably wonder why I work on this project with all things that I photograph and what these birds are all about and why we should care. And that, I think, to me is very important, right? Why we should care. Dr. Jane Goodall once said, only if we understand can we care. Only if we care will we help. I totally believe that. My first encounter with sage-grouse was in 2005, actually. I was on a quest to document all species of North American prairie grouse for my first book, Save the Last Dance. But my first love for this species was a much smaller cousin, the greater prairie chicken. I first saw the bird in 2001 when I was at the time working for a local newspaper in Southwest Missouri. My editor, who knew that I love photographing wildlife, gave me this assignment, say, Nob, I have a perfect assignment for you. Would you like to go photograph prairie chicken? And I had this kind of dumbfound on my face. I didn't know anything about this bird. I thought it was a chicken that lived in tall grass prairie. And she told me, said, no, this is a wild grouse that live in tall grass prairie. And if you want to photograph them, you have to go speak to this local man in a small town in Southwest Missouri. And he can explain to you everything and help you photograph this bird. So I went there, and his name is Lo Pugh. Unfortunately, Lo passed away last year. He was so passionate about prairie chicken. He explained everything to me about what this bird were all about. When they came to this open mating ground every day for the next 2 months in the springtime to do a dance. And he told me, he said, the only way to photograph them is that you have to set a photo blind, and you have to be in the blind before they come to the mating ground, which is before sunrise, about half an hour before sunrise. So I set my photo blind the day before, and I walked in my blind. It was pitch dark. I couldn't see anything. It was dark, and you couldn't see anything literally, and I didn't know what to expect. But I will never forget hearing prairie chicken booming sound for the first time. I was sitting alone in my photo blind during the full moon, not knowing at all what to expect. It was half an hour before sunrise, and my eye could see anything outside, but I knew I wasn't alone. With the booming sound echo across a prairie, it was the closest thing to the wilderness I have ever encountered. It has such a profound impact on me as a wildlife photographer, and we all have that, right? The little instant that changed everything. If one instant can change the course of a person's life, that morning was one of them for me. I bet many of you haven't seen prairie chicken dance before. Hear how they dance, and I would like to show you a video and see why I think these birds are so special. Through this bird, I have learned so much about the unique spring courtship behavior and the decline in the population. So I began to pursue the idea of doing a book that focused on all species of prairie grouse and their unique spring courtship dance. But to do this, I have to travel across the country from east to west to south. Here we have 5 species of prairie grouse, and among those are 10 subspecies. So I would like to take this opportunity to highlight some of these prairie grouse with you and share with you their unique spring courtship dance. At the beginning, the first 2 years of my journey, I started with the greater prairie chicken. I love to photograph them so much so that I feel like there's so much more story to tell. So I began to explore to another species west of Missouri, a lesser prairie chicken. It is a smaller cousin and have somewhat more erratic courtship dance than the greater prairie chicken. They live in the short grass prairie of western Kansas, Texas, western Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico. Their population also in steep decline in the past decade. And then to the southern coast of Texas, the most endangered species of prairie grouse of North America that most people never heard of before, the Atwater's prairie chicken. There are so few of them left. And in 2005, my first encounter with the largest grouse in North America, the greater sage-grouse. And we can talk about this bird without mentioning the Gunnison sage-grouse that live in Colorado and Utah. The Gunnison sage-grouse itself is distinct species. It's not subspecies. It's completely different species. And we didn't know anything about this bird until about 1990. And the bird became the newest bird species in North America in 2000. It's also hard to top off the erratic dancer like the sharp-tailed grouse. But little did I know that this project was gonna take me 11 years to finish. And when this project was finished in 2012, I was completely exhausted from traveling across the country. I started the journey with the prairie chicken and I finished it with the heath hen, which we will come back and talk about the sad history of the heath hen and what happened to the bird. I was completely, pretty much beaten by the end of this project, from getting up early in the morning and being a photo blind. And not to mention, well, in this case, I was literally beaten by a Atwater prairie chicken. Well, you wouldn't think I would do another book after that, right? Well, I didn't realize that that was just beginning of another journey, because doing book is very hard and I thought I was done. I would never do another book again because I was so tired. Until about a year later, while visiting a friend in Wisconsin in 2013, I ran into this old image of a fearless sage-grouse hen guarding her nest, taken by a Wyoming game and fish biologist, Robert Patterson, who published a great book on greater sage-grouse in Wyoming. That this photograph caught my attention not only because I had never seen image of sage-grouse out of the Spring Courtship, but it also showed me a true survival spirit and the behavior of the bird I had yet to encounter. I decided to return and continue my work with sage-grouse and explore the possibility where one frosty spring morning, my friend took me to his favorite greater sage-grouse mating ground in Wyoming. He promised that it would take my breath away. We sat in his vehicle and overlooked a hill directly above the mating ground. It was still too dark to see, but I could hear the birds were all surround us by the sound made by a male greater sage-grouse. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting this beautiful alpine glow on the distant mountain peak, and I finally could see it and reveal the spectacular scene in front of me. I couldn't believe my eyes. More than 250 birds were performing their elaborate courtship display. It was the biggest sage-grouse gathering site I have ever seen. It was a sight and sound that I would never forget. This must be like when first people came in contact with sage-grouse as they traveled to the west 200 years ago. And we also know who. Well, Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark encountered with sage-grouse on June 5th, 1805 during the expedition. In fact, they wrote on the journey about sage-grouse and also sent President Jefferson a shipment containing a live sage-grouse. I have no idea how to keep the bird alive in the cage for that long, but they did. Many Native American tribes have revered sage-grouse for thousands of years and still honor the birds in their ceremonial dance and dress. But with a little human interference and no man-made structure nearby, the birds were pretty much thriving there. I couldn't help but wonder about the future of this place. How long will it last? During 19 years of working with this bird, I have seen the population disappear throughout the range. Several places where I have photographed them across the country no longer have any bird, including the place where I first photographed prairie chicken in Missouri. They are now gone, and the place fell completely silent. Let's talk about the spring courtship. The spring courtship is known as one of the most impressive, unique wildlife displays in North America. Sage-grouse is the largest North American grouse. If you're not familiar, prairie grouse are ground-driven birds, and one of their main characteristics is to gather on the same mating ground year after year to perform the mating dance. Next video is to show you how sage-grouse dance. You might understand why the dance is so unique things and why it's considering as one of the most spectacular displays in nature, right? The sage-grouse one number in millions across these entire regions, but today they are pretty much on the verge of endangerment. The area they once lived has shrunk by half. About 400 sage-grouse, greater sage-grouse, 400,000 greater sage-grouse found across 11 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Well, this number may seem high to some of us, but consider the passenger pigeon here in North America were number about 3 billions in 1800 and were pretty much gone by 1900. To put things in perspective, that is like half of human population gone in just 100 years. And this bird used to fly and fill the entire sky we're talking about, and now they're just gone, extinct. Here is what you need to know about sage-grouse. They belong to this landscape. Each spring, male sage-grouse gather on the mating ground, the same mating ground or lek, L-E-K, that have been used by many generations of sage-grouse. They will continue to use this area as long as the area hasn't been disturbed by humans. The courtship behavior of all grassland grouse is remarkably rare. Among 8,700 species of world birds, 97 or just 1% gather on the mating ground to choose their mate. During this time, they arrive well before dawn for the next few months during the springtime, and the best dancer will get to mate. So you can imagine what happened. They each have their own mating stage. These birds are extremely site fidelity, which means they will return to use the same area every year. And to be on the mating ground, you have to earn your spot. You can't just show up one morning and say, hey, I want to take this. No, you have to earn it. And if you like me to photographing it every day, you will notice each bird will position themselves perfectly where they stood the day before. It's incredible to watch how they recognize an area, and they have their own small arena, and they try to outdo each other with the dances to impress the female. You can imagine, right? When females show up, all the male would just try to do best to get the female attention. Male greater sage-grouse are very big with flamboyant looking. They have this long spiky tail feather that spread out during the display to make them look even bigger. And also, they also puff up their chest. The feather on the chest are very rough and spiky. This feature may not serve a clear function except to be attractive to the female. The first step of the dance, the male sage-grouse will take the deep breath in and switch the wings again, those loose spiky feather, making a little swoosh sound. During the dance, male will expose the air sac on the chest. Well, I always tell people this is actually a male bird, not a female bird. And the little air sac made a little popping sound very quickly. And this sound, a female greater sage-grouse can hear this sound from up to 2 miles away on the calm morning. But what happened when you put a lot of boy in the same spot? Well, fight happened between the male, and if that happened occurs throughout the morning during the territorial disputes. Male will stand a kind of few feet apart in a staring contest. They kind of look at each other for a longer time and want each other not to cross. They have this almost invisible kind of territorial. And when one cross, what happened? It gets intensified in the peak of mating season, usually about late March to mid-April. The fight consists of wing beating as well as packing and biting. But to be out there every day for the next few months, male birds will spend incredible amount of energy during the spring courtship mating, as you can imagine being out there every morning, right? The sage-grouse mating instinct is so strong, male will begin to conjugate it on the mating ground early in the year, even as early as February, when the winter still had a firm grip on the landscape. And they will continue the mating ritual every morning, even when cold and driven rain and snow in harsh conditions. Several unlucky birds paid the price dearly during this spring and they became very easy prey for the raptors, especially golden eagle, because this bird spent 8 months out of the year hiding in sagebrush, and for 2 or 3 months they come out and to dance on this completely open ground, no cover, make them very easy to spot. And you have to admire them for that, though. I mean, they are so determined to impress the female by putting themselves at risk that sometimes, you know, you have to think about this bird that is not dumb bird at all. They're so, they show so much determination to do what they do. By mid-March, the female cub started to show up and express interest. She would choose cub walking around a lot, and she would choose the male who put the more energy to dance and produce the best quality of sound. In comparison, a female greater sage-grouse are much smaller than the males. And of course, she didn't have all the feather that make male look bigger. They will visit several mating grounds few times in the morning to kind of inspect and choose the male to mate. First, she would show no sign of interest. You know, she kind of flirting around with them, walking around, and that would dry all the male nut. But she also kept an eye on a dominant male. To us, most males look alike, but to a female greater sage-grouse, they can clearly identify the most prominent males on the lek. This is robot, by the way, or fembot. There are several research on the mating behavior, including the use of robot to understand the male mating behavior. For example, researchers found that successful males slow their display rate when the female are in distance and speed it up when the female come a little closer, allow the male to increase their endurance and moderating their energy output, and stimulate the female by increasing the quality and quantity of their dance. That's the most important thing. Female will choose a male who produce the best quality and quantity of the dance. But sadly, only a dominant males get to mate. The strongest male dancer crowd out all the weakest one. And you can see in this photograph, we have 10 female sage-grouse surrounded one male, and some even get ready to mate. Female will conjugate around one dominant male. A younger hen, younger female, the first year bird will learn who to mate by watching the older female. This behavior called copulation, because the younger female is still very inexperienced. The winner get to mate. You can't accept that. You can imagine that, right? The mating is very brief, with the female lower her wings to signify her readiness. A male bird one observed to mate with 23 female in 23 minutes. The successful male may breed with more than 100 times in a single season. This means what though? Most males do not get to breed. Almost like a backup dancer, right? There's also something interesting. If you watch this bird long enough, you will notice the kind of thing happened with a bird that tried to mounting on a cow pie. Well, this is the first year bird who's very inexperienced and sit on top of the cow pie and pretending he was mating, and actually this behavior is show that it's reflected in experience as well as attempt to attract the female birds, as I mentioned earlier, how the younger female watch older female who she bred with. Same thing when he tried to do this. Sometimes it worked. It fooled the younger female and he'd be lucky to get to mate one or two. But often they will get chased off by the older bird because, as you remember, they have to earn to be there. I love his expression, his face. He looked pretty panicked there as he being chased off by the older male. Well, by mid-May, most activities come to an end when all female have been bred. Male will stop displaying and leave the mating ground for summer habitat. They will have no role in nesting and caring at all. So this area, I want you to kind of look at this one, this is where the dancing competition takes place. This mating ground stays the same every year, as long as habitat hasn't changed or been converted. So after mating, sage-grouse live across this whole vast area, big whole vast area. The mating area or lack is a big part why sage-grouse mating ground matters so much. Year after year, they each come back to the same place every year in the springtime, which means that graded sage-grouse are really easy to keep track of. This is how researchers always know where to find them. Some lacks has been monitored by researchers for more than 75 years. The female, after she mates, she will go up to 10 miles and find a suitable place to nest, where she was spending on average 27 days on the nest. The hen lay anywhere between 6 to 10 eggs under the protection of sagebrush, so you have to have a good cover for successful nesting. Chick hatch sometime in late May and will spend about 4 months together with the hen in habitat that rich of wildflower and insects. In fact, sage-grouse chick eat a lot of insects during the first month of their life. They will also depend on the hen for protection from weather element as well as danger. Hen and her brood travel a long distance searching for food. Sage-grouse chicks face many dangers during the first month of their life. Half of all chicks hatched in the spring will die before the winter, unfortunately. But once they fully grow, they have relatively high survival rate. These are very long-lived birds and can live for many years if condition is in their favor. By late fall, sage-grouse will spend a lot of time get ready for winter by continue feeding because winter can be pretty harsh. During a winter in high desert can be tough for all wildlife. So what happened with sage-grouse during the winter month? Well, sage-grouse are thriving in winter. They're doing pretty well. They're built for it. They have a feature like a 5-comb feet that allow them to walk on the soft crushed snow like a snowshoes, and have a longer toe allow them to dig in the deep snow looking for food. They're a pretty tough bird. And unlike most wildlife that came out from winter in a bad shape, sage-grouse actually gaining weight in the wintertime. And they also form a big flock and in the gathering area in the wintertime. Well, let's take a quick time to talk about behind the scene. This is the kind of thing that I get a lot of questions when I tell people what I do for a living. Most people think being wildlife photographer is a fun job. Well, in theory it is, but it isn't vacation. It wasn't like you go on a trip and you go take picture and you come back to town, do some shopping a little bit, drink coffee and go back whenever you want. It's nothing like that. You work alone, you spend a lot of time in the field by yourself and away from your family, and eat food from the bag or ramen noodle, and not to mention get my foot stuck in the snow in Wyoming. Get my foot up. this project, I spent a lot of time from my family and logged over 50,000 miles in 5 years in a remote area in Colorado, California, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, and Wyoming. Didn't look like a vacation, right? Because it wasn't. It's work. Well, welcome to my office. This is me in my photo blind. I spent a lot of time in this tiny photo blind, and like again with photograph grouse, you have to be in the blind before they show up. Well, with sage grouse, very early. With prairie chicken, you're talking about 5 in the morning. With sage grouse, more like 3 in the morning. And it got worse during the full moon because this bird would take advantage of full moon and being out all night long. And you don't want to flush them. You have to be inside the photo blind before they show up. So a lot of time I had to sleep in my photo blind to make sure that I don't spook them off. And because you don't want to flush them off. When you flush them off, they don't come back until the next day. So you pretty much waste your time. And to achieve my goal of documenting their life cycle it took me about 5 years, and you already find this bird in the wide open range space. And I have a lot of people who are helping me in this project, including many of wildlife conservationists and agents, different agencies that I work with, including Wyoming Game and Fish, and Idaho, and Nevada, and Utah, and Colorado. But you still have to do a lot of footwork. When the mating ground had been identified, I spent a lot of time walking around, trying to survey the area where I can photograph the birds, because you have to set the photo blind. And unlike conventional photography where you can move your tripod and move around, with photo blind, you pretty much stuck where you set the blind, and you can't move them around. So you have to spend a lot of time looking and for the best location. And I leave my blind there for a few days for birds to get used to it and allow me for them to acclimatize with my blind, and it can get very close. And this is my blind, and I'm pretty small guy. I'm only 5'6", and that blind is so small that my head like literally touching it. And I spent countless hours in it, in this bone chilling photo blind. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I slept in it. And I love to photograph at the eye level. If you look at my photograph, most of them are shot at the eye level because I think it shows the personality of the bird a little bit better because you see them at the eye level. So I spent a lot of time laying down in this cold, blind, and very uncomfortable position for hours and hours. And I don't carry a lot of gear with me. I just have usually 2 cameras, 2 lenses, and allow me to shoot tight shot and then some shot including landscape, which I think is important to show people birds in landscape. And I also spend a lot of time hiking the pitch darkness with a heavy load of gears, sometimes for miles, especially in the summer month. This was in Nevada, northern Nevada. The place was full of rattlesnake. And driving in a terrain that resembling to the moon. One thing I have learned over the years that while working with sage-grouse is that when your car gets stuck, especially in Wyoming, the mud's very sticky, it is best to wait until the mud dry out. And it didn't matter if you have 4-wheel drive like the Subaru or 20-wheel drive, you're not going anywhere. Or if you can call a good friend, assuming that your phone is still working. Most places where I photograph sage-grouse, cell phone didn't work. So in this case, my friend, a friend of mine who worked with Wyoming Game and Fish, came and towed my car out of the mud. I still remember being chased by 100 mosquitoes while tracking a female in high desert. Female in the nest, and this was a researcher from University of Wyoming graduate student who did a study on sage-grouse. We were literally ran away from 100 mosquitoes chasing us for miles. I'm still not sure even to this day whether I would rather get stuck in high desert or eaten alive by a swarm of mosquitoes. Habitat and universal diversity. Right. To most people, the high desert may seem somewhat empty and desolate, Some call this place the Big Empty for good reason. But this is where sage-grouse live. It represents the last frontiers, openness, endless horizon, the last wilderness of North America. It is also a home to abundance of wildlife that relies on this unique ecosystem, including mule deer, pronghorn, golden eagle, blue sparrow, fuliginous hawks. Besides sage-grouse, there are over 350 species live within this habitat. By protecting sage-grouse, we also ensure survival of those species. So now when you look at this picture, this place doesn't seem to be empty after all. Some people may question of conservation plans decide to save a single species like sage-grouse, but the sage-grouse is much more than a single species being impacted by the land use. Besides, sage-grouse is the indicator species to let us know the overall health of this unique habitat. The mating area or lac is a big part why sage-grouse matter so much, because they are so easy to count in the spring season that conservationists consider them as indicator species. That means they use the same number of sage-grouse as sort of proxy of how healthy the entire sagebrush ecosystem is. If greater sage-grouse are doing well, there's a good chance that other wildlife that live there, such as elk, mule deer, pronghorn, and pygmy rabbit, and 350 plants and animal species in the region are doing okay too. Sage-grouse got the name from the plant that they feed. High desert had abundance of sagebrush plants. The plants, which is poisonous to most animals, can easily be digested by sage-grouse. But sagebrush once dominated 250 million square miles in 13 states and 3 Canadian provinces, now had shrunk by more than half of its original size. Well, sage-grouse depend everything on sagebrush. In the summer, hen need a good cover for nesting to protecting them from the weather and predator. Nesting female and the egg are really difficult to find because they're so well camouflaged in the sagebrush. Wild chick don't feed on sagebrush just yet, the first few months, but the plant provide a good cover during nesting season, allow the chick to travel from location without being spotted by predator. And there's some research show that the area that have good cover for the chicks, survival rate has gone up. And most importantly, like I mentioned earlier, sage-grouse gain weight, right? So why they gain weight? In the wintertime, sage-grouse feed exclusively on the leaves of sagebrush plant. The plant provide everything they need to survive during a brutal cold winter month. So you would think the birds that adapt to this harshest environment and can feed on toxic plants sound like a superhero of the story. So what happened? I'll come back and talk about what happened here. Well, there's a lot of reasons why sage-grouse decline. Unfortunately, most are from man-made, such as land conversion, and the introduction of invasive plant species such as cheatgrass that took over sagebrush ecosystem. The invasive grass crowd out the sagebrush and make it less useful for wildlife, including sage-grouse. Well, sage-grouse is a pretty strong flying bird. And it can fly 50 miles an hour in a straight long flight and pretty much allow them to escape most predators. But they are no match for this, the barbed wire fence, especially a fence that locates close to the grouse mating, the grouse mating ground or winter feeding area. Fence marker reduce the collision mortality by 70%, but it isn't a foolproof. Habitat fragmentation is #1 threat to bird survival. The removal of the sagebrush can be pretty devastating to the bird population. It can take 20 to 50 years for sagebrush to flourish again, and we may not have enough time for bird population to recover when they decline. To me, this was the most devastating sight to see the endless gas and oil field in central Wyoming. This was the best sage-grouse habitat up until this development. The population are being directly impacted by this fragmentation. The scar will last for hundreds of years. The place in Wyoming, you can see Oregon Trail where the wagon rode 250 years ago. Well, those wagon wheel track is still even visible today. And I'm not being naive. We all drive, we all need gas, right? But we need to do better than this. I think, and I believe we still can do better than this. And to accommodate the expansion of oil and gas field, in the area, new roads had to be built. Unfortunately, many of them are in sage-grouse home range. The birds are extremely site fidelity and will linger on, and sage-grouse are very sensitive to human activity such as noise and human vehicle and fracking equipment. Wildlife and human conflict have become inevitable. Researchers also found that chick survival rate go down, resulting in the lower population as the habitat became fragmented. This map to kind of show you how lac and oil field overlap. Wyoming has the most greater sage-grouse than any state. About 38% of greater sage-grouse total population live in Wyoming. But the state also have many large oil and gas fields, and many of them are located within greater sage-grouse range. And because sage-grouse is so easy to count, we also know that they are in trouble. The mating ground is where sage-grouse mate. It is just the epicenter of much larger range where they live. And in order for them to keep coming back to the mating ground and reproduce, sage-grouse need the entire range to be undisturbed. That means if human activity alter this area, they tend not to return to the mating ground. When they don't return, they don't reproduce, and then result in lower population. Oil and gas field leasing on a public land in the US also skyrocket. Today, the officials predict that the greater sage-grouse number will continue to fall. The sage-grouse can tell you a lot about the health of the entire sagebrush ecosystem, but they also indicate something about our American policy, about what we choose to save and what we don't. 400,000 birds may seem like a lot, right? But here's another story of the infamous heath hen, a subspecies of the greater prairie chicken that live in the East Coast. And this photograph of Booming Ben, the last heath hen, he was the last of his kind. Heath hen was number millions along the East Coast, were pretty much gone from the mainland by 1900, with a small flock survive on the island of Martha's Vineyard for another 30 years. In 1800, there were a million of them stretched from Maine all the way to South Carolina. By 1900, there were about 2,000 heath hen live on Martha's Vineyard of Massachusetts. And the Great Fire on the island did pretty much the rest. In 1927, only 3 birds, and by 1932, 0. Extinction. If you go to Martha's Vineyard today, you won't find a heath hen. Instead, you will find a tombstone that reminds us how people back then failed to protect it. Even with all the effort, it came a little too late to save the birds. Ben was there by himself in this very field for 3 years, booming in the springtime. He was the last of his kind. He probably welcomed the last sunrise of the morning on March 11, 1932, with his last dance before he disappeared into history of extinction. Extinction, that's right. Now you can imagine though, you're the last human being on Earth for 3 years. To me, that's what extinction felt like, to be the last one, and Ben was the last one. A true conservationist is a man who knows that the world is not given by his father, but borrowed from his children. Before the conclusion of my talk today, I would like to share a personal story with you. It is a story of me, my daughter, and the chicken. On March of 2015, I took my then 5-year-old daughter to Northwest Missouri to see prairie chicken for the first time on her birthday. Sound like a very cruel present, right? But it's not. It was a little after 4 in the morning when my family and I hiked to a photo blind. I heard excitement in my daughter's voice as she looked up in the sky and see this beautiful Milky Way cast of magic. I asked her, how many stars do you see? And her answer was earnest, too many to count. It startled me to think that she was one of very few kids to experience this. In fact, research showed that 80% of children in the US have never seen sky dark enough to see a starry night. As towns and cities continue to grow and get brighter, the natural darkness itself becomes extremely rare. A study suggests that by 2070, most of the US will be too bright to observe the night sky. Perhaps this is not coincidentally these darkest places without human development are where sage-grouse flourish and thrive. Looking back to the morning I spent in photo blind with my daughter, I remember the smile in her face as she watched prairie chicken dancing at dawn. She was in awe of the beauty and spirit of the birds as she watched them dance. Somehow, that morning, I saw a little glimpse of hope in her generation. Nature has a way to teach us. It also has the incredible power of putting things in perspective. You can't force someone to care for nature. They have to come to appreciate it for themselves in their own terms. Whether from experiencing watching sunrise, listening to songs of birds, or witnessing the bizarre yet spectacular dance of sage-grouse. I hope my images today will remind people of places these birds call home, places that are truly beautiful and unique to the American West. Perhaps this spring dancer will inspire us all to care for them, the icon of the West. And if a person who came from Thailand can fall in love with this bird, anybody can, only if you get to know them. And as one of my dear friends say, we must do our very best to make it better for those who come after us. And thank you again for listening to my presentation. And this is my book, Sage-grouse Icon of the West. I'm very proud of this book. It won me 5 national awards, including a winner for the National Outdoor Books Awards, as well as grand prize for the Indie Book Award. And again, I hope you get to visit to see my 4th exhibit in person in Jackson, Wyoming from November 7, 2020 to May 3rd, 2021. Thank you again, and please feel free to send me your question that you might have with the email I provide here. Thank you so much.